voting on a COVID-19 stimulus package. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into what that stimulus package is. But first, I'm going to bring in Fox 2 Detroit's Roop Raj. Roop, thanks for joining us on this Friday. We're going to, talk about that because every time I bring you on, I kind of hound you about this COVID-19 stimulus package. That's how long it takes to get things like that approved here. But first, let's talk about Sunday. Former President Trump is going to be heading out to the CPAC conference. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's going to be the first time we're going to see this former president after about 30 days. Think about it. We haven't heard from him in about a month's time. If you really think about the last time that happened, it was before he was running for office that we had had so much time pass without at least hearing his voice or seeing a tweet. But we know, of course, what happened on Twitter. And we know that he's also just chosen to be a bit quiet in Mar-a-Lago. And now he's going to be traveling not far to Orlando for the big conference. But the preview, if there's any indication of what we're looking at for the big buildup, this essentially is a relaunch of President Trump. Again, I guess you could say President Trump 2.0 relative to the fact that he was gone for a little while and he's going to come back. And he's basically going to come out and we understand his supporters are going to celebrate the fact that he's coming back as the presumptive nominee for 2024. Here's the deal. Here's the bottom line. Any Republican right now who opposes President Trump is being beat up and beat up badly. Any attack on President Trump is an attack on grassroots Republicans. And that's kind of where it's at right now. And we've seen that play out after the Capitol riots. And so bottom line right now, when you take a look at this as, a resurgence or a re-entry into the public life, he's going to wear a suit again and show up. Kind of interesting, I should mention that the long list of people who are going to be there, one person who will not be there, who actually declined an invitation, was former Vice President Pence. Still some bad blood, apparently, between President Trump and former Vice President Pence. So that's kind of an interesting takeaway. Outside of that, you know what, Daytona, what we expected. We expected to hear from Don Trump Jr. We expected him to be bombastic, and we got exactly that. We expected him to call the election a fraud. He said that. We expected him to criticize the first 5 weeks in office for President Biden. He did that. And we can hear much of the same, I imagine, on Sunday when his father, former President Trump, comes to Orlando.
Yeah, we showed Donald Trump Jr. We showed also Governor Ron DeSantis. We showed a little bit of Senator Josh Hawley. And like you said, it's kind of the same sentiment from every single speaker who goes up. Do you think that there's going to be any surprises from Donald Trump? Because usually there is, maybe just one or two things.
It's interesting you say that because, every time that this man gets up in front of a podium, you expect to hear something that's different, not the regular political speech. Part of what got him his popularity, what makes him so dynamic and different, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with him or not, is he doesn't follow the playbook of a politician. This is a guy who was an outlier, who showed up, and so many of the supporters at these Trump rallies, and I know on NewsNOW from Fox, you have shown, as well as the Biden rallies, but when you show these rallies, the people who are going there are saying, this is a breath of fresh air. I don't have to hear the same rhetoric from a politician. Instead, we're going to hear from a guy who's going to say it like it is. What's he going to say? And what is exactly the topic? Well, we know that President Biden is going to be the main target. This is one guy who's not showing up at CPAC is President Biden. But this is a guy who's going to be talked about probably more than anybody else next to former President Trump himself.
Well, we just heard from President Biden right there. Let's move right into this next topic because it's kind of seamless. Going from more of a partisan conference, I guess you could say, to what they're touting as a bipartisan bill, this COVID-19 stimulus package. I believe you spoke with some leaders in Michigan about this. What do they have to say about this vote that's going to hopefully come down tonight?
Yeah, they're hoping it'll probably be late Friday, early Saturday morning. I talked to two politicians, two congresspeople in Washington who both are from Michigan. So one was a Republican, one is a Democrat. So Republican Fred Upton and Democrat Debbie Dingell. Both of these congresspeople joining me on a call earlier today where we took viewer questions. And the biggest viewer questions, however you wanted to dice it, had to do with the fact that there's a lot of extra stuff in this bill. One of the viewers actually had a chart that we fact checked and actually found was true, that there was only so much help going to COVID relief. And in fact, the name of the bill is COVID-19 relief bill, but there was stuff for state and local government, stuff for transportation. There's a subway, a bridge, all kinds of stuff that all of a sudden some folks are coming out from different areas in the country and saying, hey, let's get some money for these projects. And when they pass the COVID-19 relief bill, we'll have the money for these things. So I asked the question to Representative Dingell, why would you support a bill that has all this extra stuff in it? And she actually went so far, even as a Democrat, to say, look, I don't know, I don't necessarily support a bridge in New York or a subway system or a bridge to Canada or whatever it is. I don't necessarily support that to be in this bill, but we do know that it's in the bill right now. And I'm trying to work as well as we can to try to see how we can scale this back. But the bottom line is this House version is going to go through the way it is. There's nothing much that's going to change about it. It's when it hits the Senate that you're going to notice things are going to be stripped out. The question is, as Representative Fred Upton, a Republican, he said, we have to figure out a way to present these bills that only include items that actually help with COVID-19 relief, not this extra stuff. But it was interesting because a lot of Democrats, I could tell you, Daytona, they actually say all the time that, for instance, transportation or museums or some of these extra spending items in these bills are actually necessary. And the reason is because these places have been hit hard because of COVID. But it's going to be easier to throw your money and your voice behind a food bank than it would a museum. And so that's kind of how they're going to have to break it down. So it's going to be a long night for all of those lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the contentious debate between this $15 minimum wage as well, and they're saying it's going to be passed through with or without that. It'll be interesting to see how long it takes and what's going to stall out the vote.
And a big defeat today. You make a really good point about that $15 minimum wage item that Democrats had really been fighting to keep in that bill. And we learned just late this afternoon, just a short time ago, that basically the person who's in charge of the Senate rules struck back and said, look, we got to peel that right out. So when it hits the Senate, you're not going to have that $15 minimum wage item in there. That's a big defeat for a lot of Democrats who had hoped that that would survive in this COVID-19 relief bill.
Yeah, so we just brought that press conference with House Democrats saying that 75% of Americans are in favor of the bill. I don't know where the stats are coming from, but I think everyone's just ready for things to be passed through. This happens every single time around. So any last thoughts on that? When do you think it officially is going to happen?
It's a great question. Just by kind of taking the temperature of lawmakers that I've talked to throughout the week and throughout the day today, I would imagine it's going to be well past 11 o'clock into the midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning hour, because we know that they're going to continue. Right now, they're in their committees. They're in some of their private meetings. By the time they end that and convene again and start debating, it'll probably be well past midnight, perhaps Saturday morning, and then on to the Senate. The saga does continue.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you being with us here on News Now. And we're going to play out your interview, I guess, with both sides of the aisle. We like to do that, show Republicans and Democrats what their thoughts are, and bring it to all the viewers who are sitting at home. Roop, we appreciate you.
It's always good to talk to you, and I love that we do that here on News Now. It's no opinion. It's about what happened and what people said, and we're going to show it to people and let them make up their own minds.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, happy Friday. Have a good weekend. We'll talk soon.
You too. Take care.
And we're going to send some of you off to a quick commercial break here. We'll leave you with this live look of the White House and of the Capitol, because that's what we're going to be waiting on, and still no idea of when it officially will come down. But when it does, we'll bring it to you here on News Now from Fox, live on Unfiltered. See you in 2.